Assalamu alaikum, dear brother.
Alaikum salam. My brother, how are you? Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. All right.
We're
All
in
right.
good kip now.
Yes,
Five
indeed.
by five and all
Five
that.
by five. Yes.
Yes.
I love it.
Alhamdulillah, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim,
Yes.
Alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alamin. Ladies and gentlemen, once more, I live to share another moment or two or three or four or whatever with my good friend here, instructor Benjamin Bilal. We're on Monday. This is somewhere in November. I think we're still in
Yeah.
November.
November
Yeah,
27th.
27 November.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
That's right. Just made it past Valentine's Day, if I remember
Yeah.
correctly. Is that where we are? Yes, yeah. Okay,
Thanksgiving.
so I'm oriented. Yeah, Thanksgiving. Oh,
Yeah.
did I say Valentine's Day? Why did I
It's all
say
right.
that?
It's all right.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Thanksgiving. Okay.
I
Well,
can understand you being focused on the heart.
yes, of course. Well, actually, everything's centered there, and I would like to consider continue our conversation, which has to do with getting us properly oriented to our position in the universe as
Yeah.
creatures of our source creator.
Yeah.
Something that people seem to too easily just set aside as if we exist independently, and we don't. So we have to responsibly respond to each moment. At least we should. And this is part of what it looks like Abraham did as he entered into this realm of being Ibrahim, or he responded to each moment consciously. And I think that's where Allah wants us to be. It's certainly where we should want to be in order to prepare ourselves each moment for the next moment and all these subsequent moments that we call the hereafter. Okay. I don't differentiate between life in the next moment and in the hereafter. I mean, okay, we're in the hereafter now. I mean, compared to just a moment ago, right?
That's right.
So we're in the hereafter. Okay,
yes.
So it's a continuum. And
yes.
if I recall my group memory correctly, there was a time when we all didn't separate the here from the hereafter. It was just one continuum. And we were very consciously aware of that, knowing, full well knowing that the hereafter the quality of the hereafter depended upon the quality of the here.
Yes.
All right. So I hope I'm making some sense here, because sometimes, I get off on these, I don't know, I step on this cloud somewhere.
It's all right. I have the uncanny ability to understand everything you say.
Oh, yes, you do. It's one of the reasons. It's one of the reasons you're a great listener. It's one of the reasons I enjoy these sessions. So I'm up here in my cloud, trying to sort out the here and the hereafter. And as I do this, I came across a surat called the Sand Dunes this morning.
Yeah.
And I think it's verse 15 through 20. I wanted to read the whole thing, but there's no sense in doing that right now unless we're going to practice being religious, and I don't like to do that. So you can read it on your own time, and I do recommend that you do this, because what Allah's talking about there in that particular passage has to do with the correct orientation of those who are becoming Ibrahim. All right, now I want to set this in the context of what you were referring to with respect to the waves.
Yeah.
The waves.
Yeah.
And the letter M, you see. And Ummah. Okay. Because I recall distinctly last week you said you were reading on Quran and said, and there it's very, very clear in the Quran, and Abraham was an Ummah. Oh my gosh. Well, that kind of erases an awful lot of hero worship, doesn't it?
Yes.
It's just gone. It's like, it's like the teacher walked up to the blackboard and said, no, wrong, wrong.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so if Abraham was an Ummah, that means that there was a time in the earth when people got it right. There was a time in the earth when just about everybody in that particular group, when they reached the age of 40, according to this surah, they turned around and said, oh, my source creator, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for giving me my parents who kept me on the right track. Oh.
Yes.
Now, there's a condition there, isn't there, brother?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, there's a condition. Okay, so let's get this thing right. I'm going to take an eraser here, brother.
Come on.
Okay. All right. I'm going to take an eraser. I'm going up to the board now. Let's get this right.
All right.
So if Abraham was the Ummah, and the Ummah were mature people who had attained unto this idea of completeness, which has to do with becoming the best that you can be according to the giftings that Allah has given you. This is all dependent upon the parents making sure that their children do this. So the child turns around when they've reached maturity and says, thank you for my parents who kept me on the right track, who kept me on the Qibla, who didn't give me any of this nonsense, ritualistic crap, all right, who kept me awake to each moment so that I could appreciate and live in the subsequent moments that followed each moment.
Yes.
To perfection, to the best of my ability. Yeah. Thank you for giving me this jihad. And thank you for giving me soldiers who stepped into the trenches of jihad with me. My mama and my papa, they were All right. They were the Ummah. So I can enter into this Ummah consciously and I can become Muslim. Oh, all right. Well, is that what the passage says? So I can become Muslim? I don't know. I think there's a mistranslation because the Quran also says, yeah, here's my eraser, brother. All right. The Quran also says that Abraham was not a Muslim. So what was he? Let's see. What was this Ummah? And who was this Ummah? All right, let me expand on that a little bit. If I can borrow something from Al-Torah, which it maybe is parascriptural, but it's part of the tradition, and there are references in Al-Torah that says something about the fact that, hey, Abraham came down from the mountain, wherever he was. I mean, he was obviously up there on Mount Moriah, which is where the breath of God flows. He was enjoying all this stuff. He was there. Nobody knows where Moriah is. It's an estate. It's a place of being. It's a place of consciousness. It's a place where you consciously receive inspiration. It's a place where you're consciously in connection, not just with Allah, but with creation, which means with yourself and with all of the creatures in creation, all of it. You're there. You're in the moment. You know where you are. You know where you are. And so if that's the case, and you have achieved that set of consciousness, it's conditional. And if you want to maintain that that place of consciousness, that's also conditional. So if we are to end, because the Surat says, hey, if you do this, if you reach maturity, you turn around and you thank me for giving you parents that are worthwhile being thanked for, Okay, there's condition here. All right. Hey, then I give you the promised land because this condition, you enter into the promised land. Huh? This is it. This is paradise. Well, I thought paradise is something we're waiting to happen. No, paradise is something you make happen. Paradise is something that you are actively involved with. Paradise is the culmination of your salat. Paradise is reaching communion with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you don't have to wait for the hereafter to do that. No, the Quran makes it very clear here. The guy's 40 years old. He realizes who he is. He realizes who I am. And he's thanking me. And because he's thanking me as an adult, mature human being who's in charge of the moment, which means he's in charge of the hereafter already, you get my drift. Hey, I'm giving this guy the promised land. And as long as he stays in that position, I'm going to make sure he keeps it. Okay. I'm going to make sure he keeps it. That's Allah's covenant. Now, I'm restating this covenant. I can't stress it enough because we cannot understand what's going on in the promised land right now, this so-called Holy Land, unless we understand this covenant. And by God, I'm not going to quit on this until I make it absolutely clear to myself and anyone who listens to us, dear brother, because it just is so important. I cannot stress the importance of understanding this covenant. So, if Abraham is this Ummah, dear brother, and we are attaining unto that, and Abraham, hey, he crossed over. That's something Musa didn't do. What's going on there, brother? Okay. Well, can we touch on some of these eggs? Huh? Can we land on some of this religiously oriented theoretical construct and put it into something that is meaningful? My goodness me, everyone talks about crossing over. What are you people talking about? You're singing there, standing there singing your hymns, and you're sending money to the people who are mass murdering the innocents. And you think you got something special on the Jordan River here? Oh my gosh almighty, you people are so far from understanding the truth and reality of this. It's shameful. It's shameful to even have to discuss it. But dear brother, I guess you can say I'm in a little bit of a preachy mode here. I can't help it.
It's all good. It's all good.
I'm
enjoying it. I'm enjoying
good,
it. Yeah.
Good. So what I was really struck by this thing because, it smacks of the same, the way people misunderstand these passages and these images that are given to us in Holy Scripture. It smacks of the same misunderstanding that says in the Hadith that the heaven lies at the foot of the woman, of the mother. Well, this is conditional too. If that's an honest statement, it's also conditional, and the conditional has to be under if heaven's there, it's got to be conditional. It has to depend on the conditions upon which those feet have walked the earth. Moment to moment to moment. Okay. Now, I have a friend of mine who's struggling with their marriage because of the intrusive mother-in-law who loves to gather everybody to a shisha party 2 or 3 times a week. And if nobody comes to the shisha party, she has a hissy fit. And these are people who believe that heaven lays at the feet. And so they have to honor their mother, okay, because the Hadith says so. And the scripture says so. Look, it's right there in the surah of the sand dunes. See? It's right there. So we have to be obedient. Oh, my God, dear brother, help me to get this thing through. That this love is conditional and that mother does not deserve that kind of honor. All right. She is not leading her children into the paradisical moments of the hereafter. She's preventing them. She's oppressing them. She is repressing fitra. And anyone who doesn't understand this is lost. They're lost. They're on the wrong path. They're not on the Qibla. If Qibla is this way, they're way off somewhere. You could be left or right. It depends on which direction you're going to take. But this ain't the Qibla. This is not the path. This is not the Tao. This is not the way forward that returns us in peace, to our Maker. We want him. We want that paradise now.
Yeah.
We want it now. We don't want it later. If there's something that's going to come later, that's fine. But I want mine now. The Quran says, take it now. Enjoy what you have now. Take it now. So all of these things are oppressing it, dear brother. These things which I just described, this misunderstanding of the scripture. The Ibrahim, the Ummah, who stood up and thanked God as a unit, as a community, they were experiencing this, how shall we say, what the Christians like to think is the Eucharist. All right, now we could have a whole session on the Eucharist thing, and I'm leading up to that in some other meetings and statements that I give. But this thing is really grossly misunderstood. So what I'm trying to get to here, brother, is to comfortably pass the talking stick over to you across this wireless connection that we have, and see what it is that Nunetics can tell us that will helpfully fill in the missing blanks of the picture I'm just trying to paint here.
Inshallah.
Because this thing of having to mature, come to the age of 40, stand up, and thank God for your parents who have led you to that point. And why don't you just thank your dad? Why aren't you just thanking your mom? Why aren't you just thanking, who are you thanking here? You see? And what is this parenting thing here? Because this has everything to do with nurturing the Qibla, nurturing the fitra. It's a responsibility, and it has to be governed. It has to be systematically organized. And I am here to say that Muslims have systematically failed to organize the Qibla in the way in which it's described. So what can Nunetics tell us about how it is that we have made this gross error and what it is we can do to correct it, dear brother? Inshallah.
Okay. Inshallah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. We begin by inviting Allah into our conversation, as always, and we ask Allah to assist us in speaking only that which we believe to be the absolute truth for the benefit of all who listen, not just for the benefits of Muslims, not just for the benefits of any particular sect, but for the benefit of humans who choose to listen. And listening is your choice. La ikraha fi din. Let there be no compulsion in the deen, not even towards listening. Now, as we know, Nunetics likes to take the fitra approach to the Quran. And by fitra, if people are not familiar with that term, it simply refers to activities that are taking place within what they call Mother Nature. And it's Mother Nature as your nurturer, as your teacher. Fitra refers to the pattern recognition that Allah has instituted in everything he created, even the invisible things like wind, and even more metaphorically speaking, emotions. You can't see them, but they have patterns. You know it when it's coming. If it's you and your wife and you come home and late and she's looking at you with that look, she hasn't said anything, but the invisible frequencies that are in operation at that moment are telling you that there's a pattern now. I know in the past that when she got that hot, that I had better go to McDonald's, whatever,
Right.
So Allah has clocked the fitra of Ibrahim's journeying as a journeyman. He has clocked that fitra into his activities, and he's clocked it into human nature. So we said that Abara, which is the root from which Ibrahim's name comes, it's referring to a crossing over. This is why it is said that the word Hebrew means those who crossed over. And you'll notice the connection in the word Abraham with the bara being in the middle. Abara ha ma, right? Well, that BR. Yes. It's a combination of words, obviously, and suffixes and so forth. But the key here is to understand that the BR by itself means to cross over. And you'll find it in the English language. If I say, bring me a glass of water, you have to cross over from the sink to where I am.
Yes.
Right. If I say, let's go for a ride across the bridge. You begin at one point on the bridge. You leave that side to occupy the other side. All right. So BR, if you examine even the English words that contain the letters BR in that order, you're going to find out that it means to leave one place, to empty yourself of one place or from one place, and then fill the next place with your presence. So look at the word baraka, which they say means blessing.
Yes.
That blessing is coming from your pocket. Let's say if it's money, it's emptying from your pocket into the pockets of others who need it. Okay, so that's a baraka. The letter kaf means hand, the palm of the hand. So it's crossing over from wherever you're taking it from, your bank account or your pocket or whoever, and you're filling the palm of another person who needs it. So that's a baraka. Okay. And the interesting thing, just as a process note, the word baraka, they translate that as a blessing. And you know that the letter R and L are interchangeable. So the BLS in bless or blessing is the same as the BRK in baraka. S and K are also interchangeable. We say circus, that's SK, right? But they're using the same English letter, C. And it's because they don't want us to see what they're saying, really. They want each other to know what they're saying, but they hide it from, you never learned that in grade school, that S and K are interchangeable, right? So baraka, balasa, blessing. Those words are sort of interchangeable. That's why they translate baraka as blessings. Now, the thing about the baraka, however, is that it's not a baraka just because you gave it to somebody. Dig this, Omar. This is good, right? This is going to be good food right here. It's only a baraka if the people or the person you gave it to is able to reproduce it and help others. Yeah, it has to be reproducible.
Oh my God.
What's causing that reproductive aspect is the letter ba, which is really the word bait. Now, what is bait? It's anything that fills up, like your pocket when somebody gives you something, empties out after it fills up, like you giving it to somebody else, and then it being refilled perpetually. So that's true for your belly. It starts with B in English and in Arabic, butun. This is the butun, the belly. All right. Your house, they say bait means house. Your house fills up with family members. They grow older. Some of them get married, move out. Some of them die, are taken out. And then new people come in, your grandchildren, or maybe a whole new family.
Mm-hmm.
So the house fills up with members, empties, and then refills. The same thing with the male testicles. They fill up with spermatozoa. That spermatozoa at some point is emptied out in whatever way pleases the person, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And then it fills up again. So anything that fills, empties, and refills is under the letter ba or bait.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we're talking about if we're talking about a baraka, that it's not just you holding on to everything that you got and not letting anybody have anything that you have. No, the way you get more is to give more. That's Quran.
Mm-hmm.
All right, now let me move on to Ibrahim and his crossing over. The original crossing over in the nature of human life is the crossing over during the last moments of pregnancy, where the baby comes down the chute and crosses over from an existence within its mother's domain to an existence that's, for all intents and purposes, independent of its mother once the cord is clipped. All right. So now the baby is breathing on her own. She's got to be fed from an external source instead of from her mother's umbilical cord. So that crossing over led to freedom. Now, connect that with the idea of the Jordan that you mentioned, that Jordan River, where it is said that the Hebrews crossed over into the promised land. That's babies do that all of the time. Every time they're born, they're crossing over from oppression, from darkness. Remember, dhulm is darkness and also related to oppression. You can't be more oppressed than being in your mother's belly like this, can't move. And then all of a sudden you're flipped upside down and then you're pushed out of a tunnel. That's oppression. But the oppression is leading to the light of the world in this case. But it's the light of freedom as far as you're concerned. You know, and people, when they're free, they like to, you know, they like to stretch out. I'm here. I'm free. No more shackles. See, that's what the baby does every time it's born. It starts to stretch its arms and its legs and its cry freedom.
Yeah.
So all of this is being alluded to just in the name Ibrahim. So that's the original crossing over that every individual has to go through. So this is not some moment in history where some Hebrew named Abraham or Abraham crossed a physical river. No, the river that this concept is speaking to is the river of the human being's own emotionality. See, emotions are symbolized under the word water, because water will remain at peace as long as no external anything disturbs it. You put a bowl of water on the table, it's going to be perfectly at peace, achieving an equilibrium, a balance, naturally by the fitra's demand, balance, until you touch it. If you touch it slightly, it's going to create concentric circles, right? Yeah. Right. So water doesn't react until it's bothered by something outside of itself. And that's your human emotionality. You want to be at peace. I want to be at peace. We love being at peace, and we don't like to be disturbed by unnecessary outside forces. So we're there reading the newspaper or listening to our favorite music, and then the wife says, "Hey, you didn't mow the lawn this morning, did you?" You feel bad because, you know, I'm doing myself, and she's trying to get the house together. She's constantly working, and here I am, you know. So that's a crossing over. I'm saying all of that to say that it's related specifically to activities taking place in the human emotionality. What is the Jordan? The Jordan is a river. And your heart is the so-called pump that pumps the blood and makes sure that it goes all throughout the body, like a river, goes all throughout the land, that one river called the heart. And the word heart is consonantally connected and nunetically connected to the word Jordan. If you take off the suffix an, You're going to have the JRD as consonants. J interchanges with H. You have the R that you have in Jordan, and the D interchanges with T. So Jordan and heart are essentially the same word.
Mm-hmm.
And Jordan it's the heart of that region.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So let's go to another instance of what's being said about Ibrahim in the Quran. There's a section of the Quran that speaks about Ibrahim as having looked at the stars. And he said, oh, you know, he called it his Rabb, his Lord, until he saw one fall. He saw a defect. And he said, no, that can't be my Rabb. That can't be my Lord. So he went on to look at the moon. And I'm sure he observed the moon as being this bright and increasing light in the sky, achieving a wholeness. But then not long after that, it began to wane. And even for one day, disappear. He said, no, defect alert. This can't be my Rabb. My Lord is not one to disappear. He's always here. Just like that paradise you talked about. It's always here.
Mm-hmm.
Now, then it says he looked at the sun and he said, Hada al-Akbar. Ah, that's a term that sounds familiar. Hada means this thing in my immediate sight. This is the greater. He's looking for Allah. He said, this is al-Akbar. But he's comparing the sun with those other bodies of light. So he's saying, compared to the moon and the stars, the sun is the greater light. That's all that's being said. This is why I don't use the term Akbar for Allah. I don't say Allahu Akbar. Allah is Akbar. Allah can never be put in a comparative framework. You can't compare Allah with anything. He tells you that in the surah called Ikhlas, Al-Ikhlas, right? That there is none to compare with him. That's the last verse of Al-Ikhlas. There is nothing to be compared with him. Kufuwan Ahad, nothing to compare with his Ahad, his oneness. So we can't say Allah is like the sun. And we're saying that every time we say Allahu Akbar, because the Quran says that the sun was Akbar, Al-Akbar. So although it's the highest in the chain of comparatives, you still can't use it for Allah. That's the beauty of Allah, that you're not to compare him with created things. Exactly. He stands independent of he is Ahad, Allahu Ahad. See? All right, now. So he goes on from the star, dismissing the star as an object of worship, an object of adoration, religious adoration. He dismisses the moon, and then he finally gets the point when he realizes that the sun is not designed for his religious focus. It helps. Who can do without the sun, right? But it's not designed for religious focus. Now, what is all of this speaking to in the mind, in the Nunetics mind of Instructor Bilal? What is it speaking to? How does it speak to me? Yeah, it speaks to me because all three of these bodies of light are symbolic of something that is taking place within each and every human being. And it's something that the fitra of the individual, again, being born as a baby, comes into. The fitra of the baby while in the womb is responding to instinct, the growth spurts that it's experiencing through those 9 to 10 months being inside its mother. most of it is instinctual. It's instinct. They're growing based on the instincts that Allah has clocked into their DNA that tells them grow this way, be this way at the third month, the fourth month, the ninth month, be delivered. When you're delivered and you hit this air and the lungs become activated, then start breathing through your nostrils. You no longer have to breathe through your mother. All of that is instinct, and instincts are symbolic of the stars, or I should say the stars are symbolic of instinct. They're just they're twinkles. They give you temporary light.
They're always twinkling.
Always. And your instincts are always twinkling. Right? The need to eat, you're not doing it 24 hours a day. You're doing it when you need that twinkle of light to guide you. Okay, I'm hungry. I'm thirsty. I'm afraid. So fight or flight instincts kick in. Those are your stars. And Allah is telling us not to worship your instincts. Worshiping your instincts is what creates a 375-pound man. Yeah, you're following the instincts to eat, but you're overdoing it now, fella. Right? Yeah. So we have to tell ourselves that's not my Rabb. See, that's not my Lord. I can't follow that to its logical conclusion, or I'll be as big as a house. I can't follow the instinct to have sex. Sex is an instinct. You know, you've written a book on it. But if I follow that as though it's my Rabb, I'm going to be in trouble. So we're rejecting the stars. Then next you have the moon, and it begins to wax, and it begins to become full, then it begins to dissipate. That's talking about your emotional proclivities. That's how we are. Break up to make up. People who are being jilted every day. They fall in love. They think they're in love. They start living with the person. They realize they can't stand them. And they leave them and they find somebody else. That's the moon waxing and waning in their emotionality. So do not worship emotionality. Don't go into religion as though it's some emotional exercise. Many Christians do it. They get in there and they get what they call happy. You see? Yeah. And they start screaming the name Jesus, Jesus. You know, the Muslims do it too. They got the whirling dervishes, right?
I call them evangelical excitement centers.
Yeah, I'm trying to laugh at them in the public, but yeah, okay, I get it. I get it. Yeah. All right. Now, what's the last body of light? The sun. The sun is a symbol of social interaction, because when the sun comes up, the socially oriented creatures, most of the ones who exist as families, not the lone hunters and those, you know, wolves in the night. I'm talking not the owl. It's just whoo, yeah. No, the birds, the butterflies, the deer, they begin to come out and run and romp and socialize. And humans, when the sun comes up, that's when they go out to work. They meet other people, they greet other people, right? They have their entertainment, they do their serious work, and then they come home before nightfall, because the sun is a symbol of social gathering, social interaction, where people become one. The Latins have the word soul, S-O-L, in their language for the sun. We have the word S-O-U-L because it operates on the same fitra platform, the soul. The soul wants to be all-inclusive. We need to tell that to the Ku Klux Klan members. You're defeating the purpose of even having a soul. The soul is supposed to bring everything into view as one thing. The soul, when it is purified, it won't even allow you to injure an animal unnecessarily. That same soul won't even allow you to kill an insect if you really don't have to. If you can just open the window and let that moth out or whatever, you know, you do that rather than catch it and crush it and kill it. That's the soul saying, this deserves life. I'm not the one who provided life for this creature. This creature has the same right to this oxygen as I do.
Yes.
So if it's not a danger to me, see, that's different now. If it's there, you know, it's going to sting you or your child and kill it or make it sick. Then when I have to compare like that, that's comparing created things right now. Okay, well, if I can't get it to get out the window, if I can't capture it and throw it out the window or throw it out the front door, I have to step on it. I have to catch this thing. Get me a fly swatter immediately. Okay. All right. So this is Ibrahim's journey I'm describing.
Yes,
from instinctive life that should not be worshipped, to emotional life, the moon, that should not be worshipped, to the life of the sun, which is the life of social organizing, social involvement, but don't worship socialism either. They want us to worship socialism right now in replacement for whatever America was founded upon. They want
translates
this,
as it translates as do not become a believer in political science, but
that's
just
right.
use it.
Use it, sure.
Yeah.
Just like we use the sun, but if you stay out there too long worshiping it, you're going to get blinked.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're going to be white. You touch your own skin and you won't be able to take it. See?
Yes.
These are ayat. These are instructing signs that Allah has placed within the fitra. So Ibrahim is speaking to that reality. And this particular ayat that you're pointing at is the one that speaks about how the human being and how the human being should be respecting his parents, particularly his mother, the one who gave him gestation, birth into the world. And it's asking Allah to provide for it the blessings, provide for its parents the blessings that are a reward for going through the travail upon travail, as the Quran says, that she had to go through in order to bring a new life here, a stranger. She did that for a stranger. She didn't know you.
But the implication there in this ayat is that, hey, that was just the beginning. The birth was just the beginning. Because he doesn't stand, the human being doesn't stand and thank God consciously until they are mature.
That's right.
So this is a mark of maturity here.
Yes.
This actual giving God thanks is a mark. It's an indicator. It's a signature, if you will, of reaching maturity, which is what Quran says Ibrahim did as an ummah.
Yes.
Okay? So I'm looking for this mature ummah. I haven't seen it yet in real life.
Because as you said about the hereafter and the paradise, it has to be created. See, Allah creates us in the wombs of our mothers. But when you're born, it's on you now, fella. You have to create a life.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Allah doesn't give you your working papers and say, I want you to be a construction worker, or I want you to be whatever. He doesn't do it. He just gives you the freedom and the ability to develop the intellect and the sensitivities to support your journey.
Oh dear.
Yeah,
so
but he doesn't. Just like the birds. Who teaches the birds to eat and to, who teaches the animals to hunt? That's in their fitra. The human being has something that those other creatures do not have. We have an active intellect that is able to grow and evolve. And that's what we're supposed to depend on during our journey. Not the instincts.
We have to actively organize ourselves in order to realize this promised land.
Yes. And the best organization is based on the guidance of Allah. Throughout all times, whatever guidance that Allah has sent to human beings to help them on their journey, that's what they are to depend. That's what they are to depend on. Not on the political scientist, not on the mathematician, not on the liberal arts major, music and dance. And that's not what we're to depend on. Not for life. Not for our connection to our Rabb. So this is the journey of Ibrahim. Now, this ayat also suggests that we're to have the ultimate or the maximum amount of respect for our parents. But did Ibrahim? How did he treat his daddy?
Well, no. Let's talk about that a little bit.
He confronted his daddy at a young age. He went up to his daddy. And Ibrahim had already destroyed most of the idols in his daddy's shop, right? And his father came and said, "Who in the hell?" In our language, what the hell?
Okay,
what happened? Yeah. And he went and asked Ibrahim. Somebody said, "I heard that it was an Ibrahim. Your son, and some young dude running around here making a mess and causing mayhem and havoc." And he said, "Well, I have to talk to this boy." Now, interestingly enough, Allah doesn't give everybody a name in the Quran. Like there's no, let's take the four so-called caliphs. Omar and Ali and Abu Bakr, right? And None of those names are mentioned in the Quran, as important as we believe them to be.
Yes.
But Ibrahim's daddy's name is in there.
Yeah.
Another companion of Muhammad, Zaid, your namesake, he's in there.
Yes.
And he's a former slave.
Yes.
How did he end up in there and Abu Bakr didn't get in? See, we don't think about these things, but these are the things that Allah wants us to think about. He leaves these names out on purpose so your brain will go to work trying to figure out why.
Yes.
How come there's no caliphs, plural, in the Quran as companions of the Prophet after the fact, after the passing of the Prophet? They're going to be called the caliphs. Allah could have said that. It's not in there. So the purification of the heart of the person who has accepted the Quran as the total truth and nothing but the truth, they have to let their own brains go to work and stop listening and depending on these mullahs and these sheikhs and these shakers to explain to them their deen. Allah says, do they not yatadabbaru al-Quran? Do they not deeply ponder the Quran? He's not talking to the sheikhs. He's talking to the average person who has accepted the Quran as his or her guidance. So where's the crossing over then? In our study of the fitra, the human mind crosses over these three aspects that we spoke to. You come out of the instinctive drives as your main motivator. You come out of your emotional senses as the primary focus and function for how you operate. And you even surpass the proclivity for social interaction and depending on the group think, the social life to tell you which way to go. You're not a person who's caught up in group think because Allah gave you an independent intellect to be able to figure these things out with proper information. So all of these things, see, were operating within the context of Ibrahim's life and social involvement. So it's not talking about a physical daddy when it talks about Ibrahim's father. In fact, the scholars are confused as to even whether this is his father or his uncle. They don't even know. Some say his daddy, some say his uncle, but we do know for a fact that his name is there. It's called Azar. A-Z-A-R, Azar. Now, why did Allah leave his name in there? I say it's for consonantal connections purposes. Because Azar is connected to Asr, consonantally. Wal Asr. Inna l-insana lafi khusr. Illa ladina amanu wa amilu salihati wa tawasaw bil haqqi wa tawasaw bis sabr. They say by the token of time, it also means by the setting of the sun, S-U-N, the same sun that Ibrahim rejected as an object of worship. By the setting of the sun, el-Asr, Asr time in the sky is when the sun is beginning to set and settle. By the token of time, by the setting of the sun, the human being is in deep loss. Lafi khusr. That la in lafi is called the la of intensity. That means whatever Allah is describing, times it by the 10th power. So he's not just lost. The human being is not just lost. He's lost in a way that he can't find his way out unless he comes to Allah. He can't find his way out from the advice of his father or from his girlfriend. Nobody can pull him out of this hole, because that's what it is. You can hear in the word it's a trouble. El khusr. And then it says, it gives the exception. Illa ladina, except for those who illa ladina amanu, except for those who have expressed faith and trust.
So is the implication here that perhaps Abraham wasn't exactly thanking God for his father?
No, not in this instance, because it wasn't talking about a physical father. It's talking about the father of idolatry. It's talking about
okay.
what produced that
Yes.
corruption.
Ah,
His father was willing to kill him to save the idols.
yes.
You see? So it's talking about a corruption within the society that had to be eradicated. But Ibrahim, at the same time, because he represented a crossing over in the intellect, that's the Jordan that he had to cross over. He had to cross over from what his heart was feeling about whoever this person was who did him good. And, Pharaoh pulled the same trick on Musa. He said, wait a minute, are you being disrespectful to the one who raised you? See, they're all appealing to the same thing. Like, okay,
Yes,
I'm going to
yes.
get them in the emotions, but Musa stuck to his guns.
Yes, yes.
Now, lastly, his father represented a waning theology. We're actually going through that process right now in America because America has been probably the biggest mushrik
Yes.
in the world when it comes to religion.
Yes.
And I'm going to make a prediction upon that note that the issues that we are suffering from now in the world will not be resolved until this world, especially the world of Christianity, recognizes that the biggest crime that has ever been committed is not crimes that are being committed by the Muslims who say Allah Akbar. That's not the crime. It's actually the crime that was committed by those who designed the image of Jesus the Christ on the cross as a white man. There's no Black Lives Matter movement in the world that can do anything with racism unless they decide to address that issue. And what's so beautiful about this, I got to keep going back to my man, W.D. Muhammad. He's the one that brought that to the surface when nobody was talking about white racism in religion being based on the white image of God that they were purporting and spreading all over the world, so that when people looked at that image, they subliminally at least associated it with the white race.
Yes, yes.
So we can't make progress past white racism because in the back of our minds, if not in the conscious part of the mind, we're seeing white people as being the people of God. The Jews, the renegade Jews, that small section of Jews who were wise in religion, they used that same trick, and that's where the white man got it. He got it from the Jews saying, we are chosen of God.
Yeah.
So when we look at Jesus on the cross and we see he's a white man, something that cannot be historically proven based on the part of the world they say he was born in, that wasn't Europe he was born in. How did he end up with blue eyes and blonde hair?
Yeah, it's
Brunette
theology. It's Pauline theology.
Pauline, yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Yes,
so
indeed.
the Christians have become the substitute for Israel.
Yeah.
And Israel was the acceptable son.
Yes.
According to their ancient theology, and all of this has to be changed. Paul said, no. Now you're all in him, and he's a substitute for Israel, and so that all can be
the
saved.
body of Christ. That's right.
So it's only through the white man. Well, Paul didn't say that, but it's later, after the Constantinian blasphemy and all of that.
After that 325 AD episode.
Jesus became white when, in fact, Pontius Pilate's slaves said he was a brown-skinned man with auburn hair.
Yes.
So this is known, right? This is a substitute theology that has been brought into the world and then used as colonizing mentality to complete the elitist imagination of them being the gods or sons of God. This sort of thing.
Right. And that's
why you're
saying
saying this has to be destroyed.
Well, it has to set that logic, that illogic. Yeah. Those lies, that deception.
It has to set.
It's setting as we speak. That's why we have to go through what we have to go. This is a flux period.
Well, that's why we're having our talks now, isn't it?
That's right. But understand that the majority of people are not going to make it through this.
No, they're not.
See, Allah said that al-insan lafi khusr. They are in an intense form of losing. of loss and being lost. And then Allah puts the exception in there, إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, except for those who have expressed faith, وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ, and engage in acts of reconciliation. See, that does away with racism. How are you going to reconcile and you're not dealing with the major problem? The major problem in religion is the white image of God and the Son of God on the cross, something that the Quran says never happened. On top of that. So it's not so much that it's a white image. It can be any image that you're purporting to be the world savior. How many world saviors have there been in history? I think one book counted 137 world saviors, you know. Yeah, you know, 100, you know, almost with the same story that they have of Jesus and his crucifixion and, you know, the flailing and all of that. So we have to get away from that. And I have to put the word white in air quotes also, because there's no such thing as white people. There's no such thing as black people, brown people, red people, yellow people. That's another part of the fabrication that has led to this unnatural separation of humans from each other. When you refer to your dog, you refer to them by their proper name. This is a Labrador Retriever. You don't say this is a black dog. You understand? These animals have names. They have species attached to them. So why do we, when it comes to humans, supposed to be the highest form of life on this planet, we start referring to them by color names? Children do that. Children do. Bring me my red ball. You take the blue ball. That's a child's mind. So there's a group of people in history that emanate out of the Jewish people, not all of the Jewish people, a section of the Jewish people who were disobedient to the Torah and said, we can do it better. So they wrote a Talmud, two of them, because they said, we don't need God, really. We don't need the Torah. The Torah is not going to help us fulfill our ultimate plan. We have to write our own plan. And that's why the Talmud represents the rabbinical writings of their scholars. Just like most of the hadiths represent the imamate writings of their scholars. And it has nothing to do with what Allah said. It has to do with what we say. What we say. Even if Allah said that and we need this to effectuate our plan and our takeover of people, we're going to put this in the hadiths. And we're not going to pay attention to what Allah says about that same subject. So Muslims have the same problem now. Whoops, was that you?
That is me, yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I was just getting ready to show you something.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you can do that.
Yeah, if I can.
Yeah,
because
you can.
we're almost
sharing
at the
our
end of the hour here.
Yes,
and I just want to use this symbol to show you something. Can you see it quite clearly?
I can. Yes, I do. Right in the middle of my screen.
Okay. All right. Now it's not a big deal here, but let's see if we can't make it into a big deal. Because this symbol here is found on the columns that have been found in the archaeological dig in Göbekli Tepe, and it goes back 12,000 years or so, 14,000 years. The symbol is carved into the rock. Now, the interesting thing about this symbol is that it's also carved into other images of the for example, some of the ancient Akkadian kings where they're carrying a purse, you see.
Yes.
And this half of the symbol is on the purse. Okay. So the king's got half of it. Okay.
I'm very familiar with that. Yeah.
All right. And the other thing that's interesting about this symbol is that there's a picture I came across on the internet a little while ago that shows a photograph of a 19th century Australian indigenous man. He has this carved into his chest, the same exact symbol.
Yeah.
14,000 years later. Now, so what do we have here? We have two halves of something separated by a barrier. Okay. So I'm speculating that one half is what might be the unseen and the other half is the seen. And in order to connect these things, you have to cross over the barrier. And so I'm just showing that as an example, as an abstract example of this crossing over thing. So how do we cross over? Because listen, this idea of crossing over isn't just exactly contained in the Bible. I mean, obviously, this symbol has been hanging around for an awful long time. Has nothing to do with what we consider to be the monotheistic religions, yet there it is.
Yeah.
And it has some spiritual, metaphysical connotations,
Absolutely.
which people are still
And
trying to figure out.
You can connect that connotation to things that are occurring all of the time in the fitra. If you can't trace it back to the fitra, throw it away. But that symbol right there can absolutely be traced back to the fitra. And I'll say most of what I need to say about that this time next week. But I'm going to give you a couple of words to investigate in the meantime. They are the dielectric inertia plane and the torus field. This is for the audience. TORUS field. If you were to take that vertical image that you just gave me, top and bottom with the crossbar in the middle, and turn it horizontal, you have what is called the toroidal field energies that are operated within everything in creation. A frog has this torus field. An ant has this torus field. A rock has this energy field around it called the torus field. A leaf is divided in the same way with the spine down the middle, if it's horizontal. Spine down the middle, right side, left side. The apple, the same thing. The apple core down the middle, right side, left side. You see? But we're operating on two levels. And as you said, what you just showed me was the vertical level. When we come together next week, I'm going to show you what it means on the horizontal level. Yeah. Because so, that middle point is where all life begins. Yeah.
Okay. So this is an abstract symbol that we can actually apply to represent metaphysical realities that affect the physical.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
Yes. Well, I'm happy to have introduced that symbol. Let's run with it. Inshallah, and see what happens next time we get together and discuss this thing, because I think we're making some significant progress.
Major, my friend, major progress.
Alhamdulillah.
Yeah. So, all right.
Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you once again, my dear brother.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It's always a pleasure.
Amen.
All right. See you soon.